the origin of the arrow of time is that growth of entropy as disorder.
There's a second law of thermodynamics, which is disorder. But I feel as a kind of reasonably creative person that actually I'm trying to make order.
People were used to the idea that there was space. We lived in space as human beings, we measured space with rulers, and we had a notion of being in space. And obviously we were in time as well, because already there were clocks, and we knew the fact that whenever we said that we were going to meet someone, we will give 4 coordinates. We will give where you are in space and where you are in time for any event or meeting. And then Einstein said, well, this is weird. We have 4 coordinates for any event in space-time, but how does space and time differ? Maybe it shouldn't. What do we mean when we combine space and time into one thing, or even can we do that? So first we've got to think about what we mean when we combine the different dimensions of space that you live in. Okay, so in this room now, we've got a very nice rectangle. And if you think about where you are in this room, you can describe it by how far you are from this wall and how far you are from the canal. When you do that, that gives you a set of coordinates and that tells you where you are in space. Now, somebody else may decide to determine where they are from that wall and from the entrance. That's a choice, and that's fine. But what matters is the fact that it doesn't matter where you say you're from, but the distance between any 2 of you doesn't matter which choice you make. I can rotate myself here, and I can say you're that much that way and that much in front. I can rotate round and say you're that much that way, and so on. So it's not just about where you are in terms of relative to something else. It's the fact that the distance between the 2 of you doesn't matter with how you describe it. And you see that you live in a 2-dimensional world or 3-dimensional world by the fact you can rotate yourself. And your brain is perfectly happy that you don't go through the whole of your life facing one way and treating one set of coordinates more special than something else. It says the only thing that matters is the overall distance. Are we happy with that? Sort of. So now, what Einstein did was say, well, if I bring time into this, it seems that we've got a problem because we're always facing one way in time. That we are trapped, always looking forward. We never look back in time in the same way that I can sit in space and turn around and look behind me. In some sense, we are exactly like the people in Plato's cave, trapped, always looking with one orientation in space-time, unable to move. So this meant that time appeared special and different to space. Einstein didn't like that. What Einstein did was then say, perhaps we can turn and change our orientation in space and time so that space becomes time and time becomes space. So that seems crazy. So then you work out the maths of this, and it turned out that the angle of which way you're facing in space-time is given by how fast you're moving with respect to the speed of light. Now, very few of us travel very quickly, ever. We all move at a very slow rate compared to the speed of light. So actually, that forces us to always face the same way in time. But not everything in nature does that. Elementary particles move near the speed of light, we accelerate these things. When that happens, they actually turn themselves in time and space, swapping what time and space look like. So in some sense, what we have, and how we're born in the world, is exactly as those people in Plato's cave, unable to face and rotate in time, always forced to face the same way. And it's only when Einstein came along and actually imagined that there was an extra dimension of time, and imagined that you could rotate in it, that we freed our mind to do it, even if we couldn't do it physically. So our contemporary understanding then of time is just like having an extra dimension in space, but in order to rotate, I need to move. Sounds a bit crazy, but that's what we've seen and that's what we've measured. But now we want to add something else to this story. That's the way in which you're facing. But what gives us an additional thing of consciousness of a before and after? Okay. If you think about time, you will think about your life, and you will go, that was clearly before, and the after is to come, the future is to come. So how does that happen if it's just a dimension, like going forward or back? Surely they're the same. And the origin of this is the fact that we're very complex beings. And we live in a complex world where there are huge numbers of components. And then we have this idea of what's called entropy. Entropy is a measure of disorder. It's a measure of how disordered and lacking structure something has. And then what you see is that in time, entropy will always grow unless unchecked. And that's a property of having a complex system. Anyone who has a cupboard full of crockery or cutlery will soon see it becomes disordered very rapidly. Okay. So anything that you keep with lots of components, disorder wins, until eventually at some point you stop yourself and then you put work in to order it again. But it's that growth of disorder is what gives us an hour of time. Now what's interesting there, we've got an egg. So a good example of where we get the order from is that if I take an egg, that is an ordered state. A smashed egg is a disordered state. There is nothing in your head that lets you think that the disordered smashed egg that will go and then assemble itself into an egg is something that would happen in the future. The future is you take the egg and it becomes a disordered state of a broken thing. So the growth of disorder, the fact that when you smash something, you can see that's the future. Nothing ever smashed reassembles itself into that ordered piece. Okay? So then the origin of the arrow of time is that growth of entropy as disorder. That's the modern perspective on why we have time as conscious beings, and also in terms of relativity, how space and time mix together, but don't for human beings, because we're forced into this world only ever looking one way in time because of our slow speed. Thank you.
Thank you so much, David, for that. Okay, so what I thought I would do is to think about the way that time affects us as human beings. Because all very well all the sort of theoretical side of things, but actually, how does it affect our lives here? And this really goes back to the project that we've got here, Alive in Universe, which is what all these artists have done. They are experiencing life here in this universe. And when I then began my study of time, I was reading a book, which a number of you will have read, by Carlo Rovelli here. That's what wherever it is. Carlo Rovelli, called The Order of Time. And he talks about, exactly as David was talking about, entropy. He talks about the second law of thermodynamics, which is increasing disorder. And this is what time is. Time is change. And he said something really rather extraordinary. And also so did Stephen Hawking, that we can feel the change going on inside us. Because in every single thing, animate and inanimate, this change, this disorder is happening. So it's happening inside me, every single one of you. It's happening in this plastic cup, this piece of paper, this thing, the floor, where time is very, very slow for the stone. I think I might be saying that. but it's happening in every single thing. Now, and we feel that. We can feel time. So, and that's disorder. So then I thought, well, you know what? If there's a second law of thermodynamics, which is disorder, I feel as a kind of reasonably creative person that actually I'm trying to make order. Surely that's what I'm trying to do in my life. And you're right about this disordered cupboard. The world can be so chaotic, and we're trying as people living our lives, and creative people, or just human beings, leading our lives to make order in an increasingly disordered world. I thought, well, that's what I'm trying to do. Now, if there is a law of thermodynamics for increasing disorder, then I wonder if there's a law of thermodynamics for increasing or for order. So then I googled around and I found this first law of thermodynamics. And what that talks about, it talks about steam engines. It talks about the way that energy can't get larger, increasing or decrease, but what it can do is it can transform from one type of energy to another type of energy. This is what happens with steam engines, happens with cars. So then you can see how the human being is exactly really like a car. You put in energy that comes from the sun, from the sun, but yes, because we eat the food, so the energy that we eat, and we transform that energy into another type of energy, which is the work, which we do that work to tidy up that disordered cupboard. So you've got these two forces going on in our lives, and we feel both of them. In the same way that we feel the second law, this increasing disorder, this kind of feeling of dread. Oh dear, time's getting on, I still haven't tidied that cupboard up. I must find time to do it. I must be a bit creative, and I must put all those plates in one pile and all the sauces in another pile. We feel this urge to do it. You know, we might just sit in a load of sloth and not bother to do any cleaning, but actually we say to ourselves, you know what, I've got to clean up that room. So there's some kind of push, there's some kind of urge there, and that is the first law of thermodynamics. And they are creating this kind of tension inside us that we feel is like a dynamic inside us that we feel. I don't know whether all of you feel it every day. Do you feel that you want to do something, but oh dear, because the reason we have these two, what they are about really in the second law, is about death. Basically, the end of the day, everything is dying, including the universe. So everything is going towards death. What we're trying to do with our transformation of energy is to stop that happening so quickly. We can't stop it forever. It's Sisyphean, as David uses that word. Sisyphean, it's futile, really, because it's all going to die. But what we can do is to stop. It's like us. We try to keep ourselves well. We try to, get our hair done and everything. We're trying to stave off the day that we die, but we're doing this by transforming energy. So this is where we have, and then, that's right, so then every animal has to have a evolutionary niche. So if you're a giraffe, you have a long neck. If you are a lion, you've got your sharp teeth. What we do, we've evolved self-awareness. So as I was saying, everything, including this book, has the two laws of thermodynamics going on inside it. But it is not self-aware. And nor are other animals, nor are, they're not self-aware like we are. Why would we be self-aware? What is the reason? Why are we conscious? Why do we have consciousness? Why do we have self-awareness? There can be only one reason why that is. It is because to most efficiently transform the energy from one type of energy to another, we do it through creativity. And how can we be most efficiently creative? It's by being aware of time. Because then you can be creative. You can think that yesterday I remember that I, think of all the different needs. So like somebody who invented glasses, because of course creativity isn't only just art. It is art, but it's everything. It's leading our lives, basically. It's finding solutions to problems. And that is our evolutionary niche, that we as, it's our USP as human beings, that we've been able to find evolutionary solutions to problems. So our eyes are not as good as Who's got the best eyes? Is it bats? I've forgotten. Someone's got
Eagles.
Eagles, okay. So eagles have got the best eyes possible. Bats, I think they've got the best kind of ears. But anyway, our eyes aren't quite good enough. What do? We invent spectacles. So the person who invented spectacles thought, well, you know what? I remember that little bit of magnifying glass or something. I'm going to do this because tomorrow that means that people can be able to read better. So it's only by having this spectrum of time, but yesterday and tomorrow, that we are able to be so supremely creative that we are. We're living within this world of time, this universe of time. We're in what's called a closed system, which is a universe governed by time. And I said we've got this feeling of dread, really, that we're all going to die. And somehow we're kind of yearning to be outside of this world of time, because it's really rather disordered and it's not really, we kind of like to be out of it. So perhaps we'd like to be in a world of timelessness. Timelessness is what I think is what some people describe as God. It's outside this disordered world of the universe and into a world of perfection. If you read through all the ancient scripts here, all the old religions, they talk about the same thing. They talk about timelessness, eternity, perfection. And the way we have these two, the contrast of the positive and negative. The negative, always the second law of thermodynamics. The first law, always the positive side. So you've got positive, first law, negative, second law, working inside us, which are right and wrong. So all the religions all say the same thing. We've got to be good, not bad, right, not wrong, positive, not negative. And so what we're doing is we're intuiting religion inside us. Religion is our intuition of physics, these two laws of physics, of thermodynamics happening inside us. Now I put this to Lord Martin Rees. I happened to be speaking to him, and I told him the proposition I've just said to you, that there's two laws of thermodynamics we intuit as religion. What do you think about that? And he says it has to be true. So that's good. He said that. Yeah, so what we do then with this kind of privilege that we have, with the self-awareness that Homo sapiens have, and interesting, somebody who was for a long time in our towers, Lawrence van der Post, and he wrote about this. He wrote about how with human beings, the more intelligent we become, the more we have a sense of social responsibility. With privilege goes responsibility. And it's interesting that a lot of the projects that we've got here that have been happening during our time here of Alive in the Universe have been people and artists who feel that sense of responsibility. Climate change, perhaps we're experiencing that right now. All these issues that human beings have, we have a responsibility to ourselves, because in a way what we're doing is we're co-creating with the universe. We are helping, through our self-awareness, we're very privileged to be co-creating with the universe to help it in its Sisyphean task of stopping the universe from dying so quickly.